This is World War III. This game is currently in closed beta, but it is going to become free to play in March 2022. Now, this game is seriously good, great first person shooter, although if you look on Steam you might notice that it's got mixed reviews. Now, there's a couple of reasons for this. The game was initially launched in 2018 as an early access game, and at that time it had quite a lot of issues. I purchased the game then myself and I couldn't join like any servers online or anything like that, people having all sorts of issues with it. But personally it didn't bother me too much because the game was, early access. I suppose with early access people are expecting at least something to be able to play. But for me, I consider it like a Kickstarter, you back in the concept of the game. But a lot of people were expecting a lot more when the game first came out in 2018, and of course, because no one could join any servers, no one could play the game or anything, that meant that there was a lot of bad reviews about it on Steam. And with the game becoming free to play in March, it means that people that have already paid for the game are not too happy, at least some of them anyway. Like I said, I'm not too bothered myself, but obviously some people are really not going to be too happy that they paid for this game. $18, something like that, maybe a bit less when it first came out. But despite the mixed reviews, I can assure you this is an excellent game. It's not 100%, there's a couple of things about it, but the main thing is the gunplay and the game mechanics, which are excellent. Some of the best in recently made first-person shooters that I've played anyway. The only way you can join the closed beta is by paying actual money, of course, and as the game is free to play anytime soon, I don't really recommend doing that, not unless you really want to help back this game, but once the game's initially released there'll be the option for in-game purchases, which are apparently going to be cosmetic only, so hopefully that stays the case. But yeah, if you do want to back the game, maybe you want to wait till then so you do get at least something for your money. As you can see, the game has gone for a clean and realistic approach to the graphics. The graphics are pretty good, especially for an Unreal 4 engine, probably some of the best graphics I've seen on a multiplayer Unreal 4 engine. Obviously the graphics are not as good as some of the AAA first-person shooters out there with much bigger budgets, but still, like I say, very good and exceptionally good for a game that's going to be free to play. Now, most of the buildings seem to be enterable from what I've played so far, which is pretty good. There is detail in the buildings as well, they're not completely empty like you would see in Arma 3. You can usually only go up to maybe 3 floors at most of the buildings, so you're not getting any snipers like really high up on top of the apartment buildings or anything like that at the moment. I think it works quite well like that, and it's probably a sort of refreshing change now from the sort of thing that you'd see in Battlefield 2042 with people sniping from miles up in the air somewhere. But got to talk about the UI. As you can see, the user interface is extremely cluttered. I've left it on pretty much the default settings. Some of the clips here it's totally default, and some of the clips I have reduced the opacity of some of the HUD elements a little bit, but there's quite a lot of customization options for the HUD, so there's various things you can do. Like I say, I've just left it pretty much default at the moment, just to give you an idea of what the game's like as standard. But yeah, it's completely, in this state, it's completely cluttered and is often blocking your view of like actually what's going on in the game and stuff like that, and can actually prevent you from being able to see enemies at times as well. But I've seen a few different videos of other people playing the game where they've messed around with the HUD options a bit, and the game will definitely allow you to customize the HUD in a way that's going to suit you personally, which again is something that's missing from 2042 at the moment, as far as I'm aware anyway. World War III currently has 2 game modes. I've got footage of both the game modes in this video. There's Deathmatch, Team Deathmatch of course, and Tactical Ops, which is kind of like Battlefield Conquest, except you'll notice that each of the flags are connected. The 2 Alpha flags, the 2 Bravo flags, the 2 Charlie flags. In order to actually be taking points, you have to have both flags of the same letter, so both Alpha, both Bravo, both Charlie, for example, before you can actually take points. And yeah, that's quite an interesting addition to the standard Conquest style. There's also a hell of a lot of gun customization in the game, which is really good. Lots of realistic scopes you can choose from. They seem to work quite realistically. They look quite realistic as well. Seem to be as closely based on the real thing as they can possibly go. Much more so than what you would see in games like this compared to, say, Battlefield and Call of Duty. Most of the guns you can have at least 2 scopes on the gun at one time, I believe. But the best thing about this game is the gunplay and the game mechanics in general. They are absolutely amazing in this game, in my opinion. It's just the right balance between like an arcade shooter like Battlefield and Call of Duty and something more real, something more realistic like Arma or Squad. It's a good balance between the two, which I personally find extremely enjoyable. But I think at the same time it's one of the things that will put it off from being a really successful game, although I do expect it to be quite successful, but the element of realism is going to put some people off when they're used to more arcade-style arcade shooters. Now, it does have some elements of arcade shooters, like, most of the rounds are sort of like a tracer. You can tell where the rounds are coming from generally. when you get hit, there's like a sort of red marker that comes up to show the direction from which you have been hit, and it'll also show you the position of the person that shot you. But at the same time, the time to kill in the game is very, very low, so you get killed extremely quickly, which changes the gun style to a much more realistic approach. We have to be a lot more careful, a lot more slow-paced sometimes, and work together as a team much more so than you would do in games like Battlefield and Call of Duty. And the tanks are pretty powerful, they're quite difficult to kill. Maybe they want to tone the tanks down a bit in this game, I don't know, but they're definitely quite powerful. But you can still do things like take out the optics on the tank with a sniper rifle, which definitely adds an interesting element to the gameplay. And of course friendly fire's on, so you've got to watch out for teammates, which is something that's not been in more arcade shooters for a long time now. But that should not put you off, especially if this more realistic approach sounds interesting to you, then you should definitely be checking this game out. But the game does have some issues, the most noticeable of which would be the sound. At first the sound is terrible, but once I played it a bit I started to realise that not all of the sound is terrible, it's just the things that you listen out for the most, which are the footsteps and the gun sounds. Other people's guns firing and stuff like that, as well as your own gun firing of course. And the footsteps of friendlies and enemies when they're running near you, they are just not very good sound effects at all. They could definitely do with improving those sound effects. When you listen carefully you'll notice that a lot of the other sound in the game does actually sound quite good. Could do with a bit of volume, maybe like when the tank shells come in, it's a nice sound, it's just a bit too quiet I think. Tanks and other vehicles do not make enough noise. The tank in particular, when it's rolling around on those caterpillar tracks, you should be able to hear that from pretty much the other side of the map I would imagine, if you were going to be realistic about it. But I definitely prefer the tanks to be a bit louder, that's for sure. The frame rate is not amazing. It's not awful, it's not like Arma 3 level, but it's still totally playable. I've got the graphics on sort of a high rather than an ultra sort of setting, and probably averaging over 100 frames a second at 1440, but it probably is a bit lower than what I'd get on say 2042 for example, maybe 10% lower. And the first time I played the game I did have this weird stuttering, which after looking into it, it's apparently something that can happen with Unreal 4 engine games, where the game is in windowed mode even though it says it's not in windowed mode, and it can have issues running in windowed mode. It will say it's full screen when it's not, so what you do is you actually put it in windowed mode, click apply, then put it in full screen mode, then click apply, and then you're actually definitely in full screen mode, and that will stop that weird stuttering thing. But yeah, I totally got that. But yeah, overall World War 3 is a really, really good game. The maps are very good as well. They're a good size for the number of players, there's lots of cover everywhere, and the maps have got a lot of detail. So compared to 2042 maps where the maps there's a lot of open space, you don't really get much of that here. There's some open space, but nothing like it is in 2042. There's much more like cover, much more places to hide from tanks and things like that than there is in 2042, which is great. But with the maps being so much more built up, it does mean that you have to kind of learn your way around the maps at first a little bit, especially some of the bigger ones, when you're playing the Tactical Ops game mode. But yeah, if this game does in fact look in any way interesting to you at all whatsoever, then I highly recommend that you check it out, as it's going to be free to play anyway, so no excuse not to. It's not even a particularly insanely large download. Well, the beta's not anyway. I actually don't know about the final release yet. I suppose there could be a few more maps and things, but still won't be like an insane download, I'm sure. Is it a 2042 killer? Well, for some people definitely will be, but also for some people where the extra level of realism is going to put them off, people that are looking for a 2042 replacement, that extra level of realism is probably going to affect their enjoyment of the game. People that are into King of the Hill on Arma 3, people that are into Squad, you know, Wasteland on Arma 3, stuff like that, yeah, definitely you should check this game out when it becomes free to play. Highly, highly recommend it. Hopefully soon they'll sort out the issues with the audio, and once they've done that, I would consider it to be a fairly well polished game actually. But totally, the most important thing of all, gunplay and the game mechanics are spot on, so yeah, highly, highly recommended.
Our units are taking over objective Charlie 1.
Unlucky, dude. Sniping's good in this game now.
Alpha 1 is under attack.
Objective Charlie 1.
I think we've got friendlies gone to Bravo, but we've got a friendly tank at Charlie 1 by the look of this.
Enemy vehicle spotted.
Enemy tank right near me.
Objective Charlie 2 is under attack.
Shit, these Charlie flags are getting fucked.
Area Charlie is
Hostile vehicle close by. Enemy waiting up
Oh,
there.
that was a good shot. Wondering if I've got the optics on that tank. It's good that you can actually, you know, do something against vehicles as a sniper. I do like that.
Attack objective Bravo 2. Defend objective Charlie 2. Eyes and ears, lads. Enemy infantry close by.
Alpha
Dude.
1 under attack.
He's trying to heal himself.
Bloody hell, heavy lad on the prowl. Medic, help me!
I assume they got that enemy that was right there. Get him, yeah?
Taking hold of objective Bravo 2.
He was fucking surrounded by enemies.
Attack objective.
Enemy
I'm
UAV
thinking I'll go
overhead.
for Alpha 2 after this. Don't get points until you link the two flags, so for us to get points at Charlie we need to link the two Charlie flags. C2 has been a difficult flag to capture. Getting C1's pretty much stopping them from getting the C flag, but I think we should go for
Objective Alpha
Attack
1
objective
Alpha
under
2
attack.
rather than Charlie 2 right now. Just get there.
Alpha 2.
Ooh, 4 and 7's nice. There's bullets going right past me, I'm not sure where the fuck they're coming from. It's coming from a tank in front of me.
Our units are taking hold of objective Alpha 2.
Are you waiting up, Ed?
Our units are taking hold of objective Bravo 2. Objective Charlie 1 is under attack.
Muppets, we lost the point.
Yeah, we won't get points from Alpha 2 because we've lost Alpha 1. Definitely need to go back for Alpha 1.
Attack objective Alpha 1.
Yeah, I've got a scope for this gun. I don't know if I can equip it in the middle of the round like this or not. I suspect not.
Штаб по обороне Москвы доводит до сведения граждан, что подступы к столице контролируются нашими вооруженными силами.
Enemy
Сдача
UAV
города
overhead.
войскам
Our units
противника
are taking hold of
исключена.
objective Alpha 1.
В стране объявлено военное положение. Все граждане должны безоговорочно выполнять указания представителей военной администрации.
Enemy radars are being jammed. Area Bravo is under our control.
Got some meds for you, mate. Yeah, stay down.
Ready at your command. Area Alpha is under our control.
Attack objective Charlie 1. Casualty!
Well, hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Hopefully I'll see you next time. Take it easy.